Welcome back to the Kalopsia Podcast, and Happy New Year, everyone. How exciting. We have officially made it to 2025, and I think that we have a lot to be proud of ourselves for and a lot to look forward to, and I'm so happy. If you guys came along from last year, 2 weeks ago, or 2 days ago, I should say, then thank you. I'm very grateful that you guys have stuck with me heading into your new year. Hopefully this podcast, and hoping to understand ourselves better, understand the trials of tribulations of life and trying to find the positives in those too. Hopefully that also matches up with your resolutions, whatever positivity you want to bring into the next year. So, with this podcast, I really do want to emphasize sometimes we're going to talk about things that are really fun. Sometimes we're going to talk about things that are a little bit harder to think about, but it's all for the purpose of trying to learn to navigate through our issues in a better way and with gratitude. And with that, I thought we could head into today's topic, which is our reflection of 2024. We're going to go through the past episodes, kind of think about what prompts we could come up with those. I did want to use the lessons that we already went through, what we already discussed, and especially with the new year coming about, I feel like it's a big time for reflection as well as goal setting. That much is for certain. But at the same time, I don't want to pull these prompts out of nowhere. And so since you clicked on this week's episode, I thought that probably means that you enjoyed some of the topics we talked about this year. And so let's put the two of them together. Let's kind of reflect on the episodes that we've done and see how we can use those to reflect on our past year and how we want to take that into the future. So let's start with season 2's first episode, and that was an episode on redefining success on our own terms. And so let's see. Also, before we hop into it, if you guys haven't seen it, you probably have if you're clicking on this episode through Spotify, Apple Podcasts and all, but if you are on the YouTube channel, we just got a new cover. I'll put it on the screen somewhere. But yes, I'm so excited. I did it all myself, in this room actually, so I'm really excited about it. And I hope that you guys also like it. I picked some of my favorite books to include, the ones that are actually always on display right here. So I used those for the little picture, and I just think it's really cute. I feel like the yellow represents kind of that joy that we're trying to find, but we've also got our books, so we know that we are using our tools to try to find that beauty in everything. And I also put the slogan at the top. So if you guys haven't checked it out, I would recommend. I'm really proud of it. But this year's first episode of the season was pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And so in this episode, we talked about how, it can be kind of hard to beat that inner resistance that is your past self trying to stay in that zone, in your zone that you are used to, that you can predict, that is habituated, right? But if that current self isn't serving you, if your current habits aren't ones that you want to keep pushing towards, if you find that your current habits aren't conducive to your goals realization, then you're left with the realization that you're going to have to go ahead and push yourself out of your comfort zone. And so we talked about a few different tools in that episode, but I don't want to go through it all again. You can go back and listen to that one if you'd like. But a couple prompts that I came up with this topic was, how do you currently define success, and how has that definition evolved over time? Now, personally, I feel like my definition of success has almost always been monetarily growing up, right? When I was growing up, I was thinking of success as, having a certain amount of my savings, having a certain amount in my bank account per month. And to a certain degree, I still think that's true. I think it would be silly to think of monetary success as not being a defining marker of success. I definitely think that is in a lot of ours, dictionaries of the word success. But I feel like over time, I'm learning so much more about how much emphasis community and support has on my scale of being a successful human, right? Because I'm not talking about career success, But if I think about myself as an individual and me thinking I'm successfully doing this life correctly, I am happy to discuss I'm happy in a conversation where, somebody says, how are you? How are things going in life? Career wise, how's that going? I'm like, I don't know. But in life, I think I'm doing pretty good. I've got my best friends. I've got my close confidants. I feel really supported. I have this beautiful home that I get to live in. I have food on the table. I feel success. I feel, like all of my primary needs are met. And to me, that is my now evolved definition of success. Now, another prompt here is, what steps can you take to align your goals with your authentic self? So in that episode, we had talked about how habits and the power of habits, especially if you've read Atomic Habits, that was a book that I mentioned in that episode, I believe. Atomic habits and habits in general are a huge tool in manifesting your goals. And so if it's hard for you to think about jumping out of your comfort zone all in a sudden, right? What shifts can you make in your day-to-day life that might lead to you pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, right? So for example, if you are used to doing a specific workout circuit, what if you just change your workout circuit, and in doing so, you inadvertently put yourself in new situations that you might not have before? It can start with very small shifts, but, for you, what steps can you take to align your goals with your authentic self? And that can help you redefine success in your own terms. It can even help you push yourself out of your comfort zone in that way. Now, the second episode of this year was the key to creativity is routines. Now, this episode really honed in on Atomic Habits and the power of Atomic Habits. So in this episode, when we're thinking about creativity, we broke down creativity into actionable steps, because I do think it's hard to just jump out of your comfort zone in a way and just oh, you've never painted in your life, I'm going to paint 3 times a week. That can be tough. So it's all about trying to use your intuition to guide those habit, building, that habit building that will then help create and build upon your creativity. So in my sense, I believe in that episode I had discussed how my morning pages ritual, which is something I do every morning, where I write 3 pages for stream of consciousness, writing, including a page of gratitude, then I feel like I've given my brain the space to come up with ideas, to come up with things for me to build upon when it comes to painting, when it comes to this podcast, when it comes to my writing, anything of that nature. So what can you do using your intuition? How can you build your days around building upon that creativity? So a lot of that has to do with intuition. So I have a couple prompts here kind of around strengthening that intuition. So the first one is, think of a time when you trusted or ignored your intuition. What did you learn? Now, and how can you strengthen your ability to listen to your inner voice? I'll let you guys think on that for a second. Episode 3 was 10 tips on how to build your self-respect and self-confidence. And in this episode, we talked about letting go of comparison. We talked about leaving people behind in your past who aren't going to help you and help you build on yourself in the future. We talked about prioritizing self-care. We talked about the tyranny of just because. Remember that? It's why are you doing this? Why have you set this goal for yourself? Did you do it intuitively, or is this something that was expected of you and now you feel yourself forced to do that? You're not going to build confidence that way. So it's all about kind of learning to look within before you can kind of build that outward confidence, right? But it does begin with self-respect. And so when you're thinking about that, a lot of that has to do with boundaries. Are you going to keep doing habits that aren't serving you and letting yourself, self-indulge to the point where it's I have no boundaries with myself. I'm unable to achieve anything in my life. Are you also going to let people walk all over you, or let people kind of dictate what you're going to do with your weekend or how you're going to spend your time? Everybody's saying, let's go out, let's do this, but instead you actually want to save your money and you want to go to bed at 9. It's all about setting those boundaries. So I have a couple prompts kind of leading into that, which is number 1, reflect on a boundary you've recently set or struggled to set. what was the outcome? Now, the other prompt I came up with was, how can you honor your needs while still respecting others? Because that is at the end of the day going to be a little bit of a tougher one. But think about it, really think about it, and how are you going to be able to prioritize your needs and set up your goals and stay true to your boundaries while not necessarily disrespecting others, There's a give and take. So episode 4 of this year's season 2 was how to manage self-criticism. And self-criticism can be really tough, as we've seen many a times. And a lot of the time that has to do with accepting your weaknesses and kind of leaning into those strengths. And sometimes you can even turn your weaknesses into strengths. But essentially, we talked a lot about the impact of negative self-talk and how that can cut you off at the legs before you even gotten started, or whatever the idiom is. I don't know idioms. But, a lot of the time we have to pay a lot of attention to our self-talk. And that's kind of what we were leading into in this episode. But now leaning into that, I have a couple prompts here kind of under the scope of breaking free from perfectionism. So a couple of the prompts that came up for this one was, what areas of your life do you struggle with perfectionism? And how can embracing imperfection help you feel more fulfilled, right? And I think that that's kind of a juxtaposition. How can embracing imperfection help you feel more fulfilled? And so let me think of an example for that, honestly, because that's a bit of a tough one. I feel like a lot of the time when you set a goal and you want to achieve something particular, you set up your little steps and you say, okay, I'm gonna set a certain amount of videos that I have to post per week. I'm gonna set the amount as 4 videos per week. So I want to post 4 videos per week. This is like a fake scale, fake world. I don't know. Maybe there's 30 hours in these weeks per day, because I don't know who's going to be able to post 4 videos per week. Anyway, let's say that you say you're going to post 4 videos per week and you get started and you're able to post 4, but you don't like the way that they are coming out, right? You don't like the way that they're coming out, but at least you've posted 4, right? It's imperfect. It's an imperfect result. It's an imperfect product. But the one thing that you can be happy with is that you've successfully completed your set goal, right? It's difficult when it comes to perfectionism in goal setting and in wanting to achieve, especially if it's something creative. I think it can be really hard to find what holds more value to you. But I think learning what holds more value to you is going to help you when it comes to dealing with that sense of disfulfillment or unfulfillment, right? Because if you are setting the goal of posting 4 videos per week, you are automatically forfeiting the goal of wanting to post 4 incredible, perfect videos every single week, because you are not going to be able to do that with this time frame that you've allotted yourself to. So are you placing the value on the quality of the thing that you've produced, or are you rather trying to build the muscle of the posting, trying to build the muscle of the process, the journey of doing that creative, cycle of filming, editing, posting, uploading, doing all of these things? Is that the muscle that you're trying to build, or are you trying to build the artistic muscle in that sense? So I think that when you are going into 2025, now that we're here, setting these goals, where are you placing the value? Because I think that it is the insane expectations of being able to attack all sectors of a specific goal all simultaneously. That's where unfulfillment is going to come up. You need to be able to know where your value is being placed more heavily so that you can look at yourself with more kindness. But in your life, how can you take imperfection and let that help you feel more fulfilled? Now, episode 5 of this year was transitioning into fall. We had Brat Summer. We had a fantastic summer. We were having fun outside. I'm talking for myself here in my friend group, but we were having so much fun. All of a sudden, sunset starting at 6, starts setting at 5. Also, when you're listening to this in January, daylight savings is on we're weaning back out. The days are getting longer. So we've made it through, you guys. We've made it through the worst of it. From now on, the sun is just going to keep going higher and higher and higher, or the days are going to get longer and longer and longer, and it's going to be fantastic. But until then, right, this episode, going back, was about transitioning into fall. And so a lot of that had to do with trying to enjoy the small moments and also having something to look forward to. But at the end of the day, when you are in the season of cold, when you're in a darker season, it is so much harder to find excitement or find joy out of the small moments. But in winter, in the fall, the biggest thing that you have are the smaller moments. You know, we placed emphasis on mood lighting, on having a good book to read, maybe buying some new teas that you really like, maybe planning a reading session with some friends. It's all in the little things, especially when having that season of slowness, right? And that's not something that's only exclusive to fall. That's something that we go through in all of life, you know? I feel like, especially in my life, I have huge seasons where I am feeling so inspired by the world. I'm feeling like I can seize it by my hand. There's so much to accomplish. There's so much to build upon. And then other times, it feels like the sun is setting at 3 p.m. and it's just like, I have no motivation, and that's where you gotta lock into that discipline. But it's also when we have to lock into our gratitude, and it's going to see you through it. So here I come up with a couple prompts on the power of gratitude in everyday life. And so I want you to list 3 moments from today that you're grateful for. And how can practicing gratitude shift your perspective during challenging times? So think on those. Now, episode 6 was on identifying self-sabotage and how to get through it. Now, this was a little bit of a tougher episode, you know, a little bit of a darker episode, thinking about sabotaging and limiting beliefs that are set, you know, by the age of 7, we discovered, right? So I want us to think about how to build a stronger connection to ourselves so that we might be able to stand in our own way less. And so the prompts here that I came up with are, how do you currently prioritize self-connection in your daily life? And what practices can help you nurture a deeper relationship to yourself? Right? It's so important to be able to check in, not just at the end of the year, but throughout the year. And I was just watching a YouTube video about setting goals for the future, reflecting on the past. And, you know, I went through that. I actually found a TikTok online. I'll leave the link in the description if I can. But basically, it was a TikTok about using ChatGPT to help you set your goals, actually. And it was all about using ChatGPT to come up with prompts. You fill up those prompts, then it would write a letter to yourself, and then you can use that letter for your visualization, for your manifestation. It goes into scripting as well. If I've not talked about it before, scripting is essentially when you write down, you know, a certain, like a letter to yourself, but you set it in the year following. So if I wrote it on December 1st, 2024, I'm writing down the date December 1st, 2025, and then I'm saying everything that I really want to manifest in huge detail, and I'm writing it in past tense, and it's supposed to trick your subconscious into thinking it's already happened. Then you file it away, don't look at it again. Now, this woman, that was the TikTok, right? But then on YouTube, I was watching this woman. She was doing her goal setting and her visualization, but using Pinterest boards as well, which I've also done. If you haven't, I really recommend, after you've written that letter, or after you've written your goals, or after you get really clear on what you really want to do, then what you can also do is go on Pinterest, find a lot of different photos that also make you feel that sense of excitement and that go hand in hand with your visualization. You know, you look at these photos, you see yourself there, and it looks like it really feels right for you, clicks for you. And so in the past, I've always done these vision boards as a yearly vision board, right? But this woman, she was saying, I do mine in quarterly assessments. You know, every 3 months, I'll do a new vision board because it's really hard to think so far deep into the future. So building into this, building a strong connection with yourself, I think it's so important to get really clear on your goals. And if it's not that clear, then do what this other girl did. You know, it doesn't have to be for the whole year. It can be for the next month. It can be for the next 2 months. make that distance, that time frame, have that be true to you, be true to what you are actually capable of conceptualizing for yourself. It doesn't have to be this huge 10-year plan. It can be a 10-day plan. So it's all about checking in with yourself, thinking to yourself, does this still feel true to me? Or am I self-sabotaging myself in some way? Am I standing in my own way in some way? How can I get even clearer on my goals? And how can I facilitate my journey there? Now, Episode 7 this year was on secrets, the double-edged sword. And we talked about secrets almost in the philosophical sense of how secret keeping can be almost like a community building thing. When you think about gossip in the olden days before misogyny turned that into a villainous pursuit, right? Gossiping, secret keeping, discussing with others and stuff like that, it is community building. But on the other side of it, on the other side of the sword, you have keeping your own secret, right? If you have a secret within yourself, it will decay at you because it is isolating, right? So when we think about that and the lessons that we learned in that episode, perhaps we think about leading life more honestly and letting go of those secrets that are holding us back and keeping us away from others in our community. How can we try to knock down those barriers, of course, without hurting other people's feelings, but how can we live more honestly so that we're not actually self-sabotaging our own psyche? So with that, the art of letting go, I have a couple prompts for you. Reflect on something you've struggled to let go of. How has it impacted you? What does freedom from that attachment look and feel like? Now, episode 8 was one of my favorites, and it is the key to your destiny, the law of assumption. And in this episode, we discussed setting your goals, having that visualization, and we talked about the founding father of the law of assumption. What was his name again? Neville Goddard. He, was so adamant that the better your visualization of your goal is, the closer it is to you. The more that you can think about what you are feeling like, what that manifestation is going to, how that manifestation is going to impact your life, how it is going to make you feel, how it is going to help you build and grow, right? The better your visualization is, if you can really put yourself in the shoes of that future you, then it wants you just as much as it wants it. So we were talking a lot about the power of assumption and the power of visualization, and that is especially important going into this new year. How do you want to feel? Have you made that vision board? Have you gotten really clear? And so with that, reflect on a part of your life where you're feeling stuck. How are these assumptions holding you back? How can you reframe these beliefs to align with trust in divine timing and the inevitability of your success? And another thing when it comes to setting these goals, especially with the new year, is that we have to assume the feeling of success. How would your daily thoughts, actions, and emotions really shift if you align yourself with this inevitability of success? Now, episode 9 talked about, does free will truly exist? And here, I had an existential crisis filming this episode. After this episode, I think that when it comes to physics, it doesn't seem as though we do have free will, but when it comes to social discussion, right, it is important to note that expectations of our parents, of generations past, and of our culture around us, those types of expectations we do not have to abide to. And on that level, we do have free will. That is what I believe. Now, when it comes to human behavior, it does appear as though we do not have true free will. But when it comes to just like overcoming that kind of self-doubt, when you do find yourself trying to try something new and exercise that free will, right? To exercise that free will and stay away from the just because, tyranny and, imposter syndrome of trying to do something new, but you don't feel like you can just because you've been told that this isn't what you're supposed to do. So recall a time when you doubted your abilities. How did you overcome it? What affirmations or strategies can you use to silence self-doubt moving forward? Now, episode 10 is how can we live more intentionally? So in here, we talked about kind of leaning into our intuition, embracing the slower months, embracing the slowness of winter in general. And a lot of the time we are almost kind of like rushed through life. And I think that that's what we were really discussing in that episode. We're rushed through life. We almost keep our head down in the constant spiral of having to build upon our goals, having to always be developing, always growing. And a lot of the time it is really important to kind of allow that moment of silence seep into your day. Have a few moments where you stop what you're doing and just take a deep breath. But now how can we take this and kind of use it to reflect on our past year? Now, in these moments of stillness, I think we need to use these moments of stillness to redefine and reassess our priorities. I literally wrote that down in my journal this morning. This is a habit that I have that invites silence, that invites boredom. And it's something that we really need to do more often, not just at the closing of the year. I think it's really important to, a lot of the time, if you want to live more intentionally, what are your intentions? Where do you feel most true to yourself? So the prompts I have here are, what activities or experiences make you feel alive and aligned with your purpose? And how can you incorporate more of these into your daily life? Episode 11 took us into the discussion of, are we empaths or do we lack emotional intelligence? Now this had to do with the whole empath trend. Everybody's saying, well, I see somebody cry, I have to cry. I see somebody stressed, now I'm stressed. There was this doctor online, this psychologist, she was discussing the fact that if you find yourself unable to distinguish other people's emotions from your own, that can have you think about the possibility of your having a lesser emotional intelligence. But at the same time, where does empathy come into play? Where does that kind of side of it come where how much of other people's emotions are my responsibility? How much of it aren't my responsibility? Does kindness also mean that I'm getting walked over? Overall, the value and role of empathy in our society is indisputable. And I think that with that, we have to think about how we can try to judge others less. And I feel like this is also something that I have had to work through a couple times in the past. But self-empathy, as well as empathy of others, is going to help foster more interconnected communities. And we've talked about it also in the sector of, having individualistic societies versus collectivist societies. And so with that, how can we release judgment of others? So the prompts I have are, think of a recent situation where you judged someone. What assumptions did you make? Now also, how can practicing empathy and understanding improve your relationships? Episode 12, in turn, took us into the discussion behind the scenes of a podcast host. I talked a little bit about the technical issues I've been encountering, as well as the planning and the, give and takes of it all. But how can we, apply this to anybody who's also not outside of this podcasting sector, right? This can apply to anything professional, anything creative. And so, what is one thing that you've learned about yourself from working on a personal or creative project? Reflect on the balance between passion and practicality in pursuing your dreams. Episode 13 was on divine timing. Set your mind on it and set it free. I think that this is another great thing because it helps us release our anxiety when it comes to the time frame of our manifestations happening. A lot of the time, it's just not something that we have control over. And so where do we find ourselves, pressing on the temporal aspect of it all? We need to be able to take that step back. And so a couple prompts on this divine timing sector is, reflect on an instance when something happened to you at the right time in life. How did it shape you? I love this question because not only is it helping remind you of sometimes things happen at the right time, and that right time might not have been the time that you wanted it to happen, but sometimes things will happen as well, and it will take you by surprise, but it'll be perfect. It'll be perfect timing. And so how did that shape you? And then also, what does divine timing mean to you? And how can you trust the process more? And that's also going to help inspire you to write it down in your own words. And just like in school, when they say take notes and stuff, it's like write it down in your own words and you might reveal something that might have confused you that you thought you were set on, or something you thought you were set on, you have a new perspective on. So I think that's also a great reflective question. Now, episode 14, quit overthinking it and how to turn your goals into daily habits. I think that this episode was after my huge realization of when you are really, really wanting to complete something, wanting to complete a task. This was especially true for me when it came to running, because I wanted to run 2 runs per week in the month of December, I believe. I think in November I was doing 1 run per week, and then I upped it to 2. And the weather was getting colder, by the day, by the hour. And so it was really, really a challenge to get myself outside and get myself into my clothes and really just get out there and just start doing it. And the biggest thing that came out of it is that you must stop thinking. Sometimes you have to go into the automatic, pretend that you are a sim, that you are just getting ready, sit yourself down at the table, get your cup of tea or coffee. What are your habituated tasks? You just want to get yourself to that starting line without even having thought about it. You want to think about it the least amount that you can possibly. So, how to turn our goals into daily habits, and what prompts do we have for that? So the first one is identify a goal you've been overthinking. What small step can you take today to make progress? Also, how can you simplify? This is the key word, simplify. How can you simplify your daily routines to align them with your long-term aspirations? Now, this is also like on the bigger scale, especially coming into 2025, that this could be, a better kind of way to look at it when it comes to how are we overthinking this? Okay, I want to write a book, but that's huge. Like, how do I do that? Like, that's huge. Like, then you're going to think about it. You're going to talk yourself out of it. You're going to say, oh, but I don't have any of the certifications. I wasn't even an English major. Oh, like I can't do it. Overthinking. No, listen, how can you make this the most incremental next right step that's going to get you closer and closer per month, per quarter, per year to achieving that goal? Don't write it off just because it seems complex. How can we break it down? What are the building blocks? Now, episode 15 took us with it's okay to change your mind. So the prompts that I have for this, I don't think we need that much of a refresher if we just recently listened to this, but let's say that you didn't listen to that episode. So it's okay to change your mind was really on the basis, and I had just read this book. The past couple episodes, honestly, have been heavily inspired by this book that my sister gave me recently. And it's all about, this episode was all about the understanding that even in adulthood, you're going to have reinventions. You're going to have transformations. You're going to start from zero. You're going to climb up. You might fall back down. You're going to climb back up. And each time you might be a new variation of yourself. And a lot of the time we think about that in adolescence and childhood, and we think, what a great thing. They're developing. They're changing. But then when you're an adult, it's like, why are you still changing? Why are you still changing your mind? Do you not have a set goal? No. Change and evolution, that comes with building upon, but also shifting these goals or these habits. And it's definitely okay to change your mind. It's okay to reassess. And I think great things can come from that. Now, a prompt for that is write about a time when you changed your mind about a goal or belief. How did that feel? Right? And also, how can you embrace flexibility in your personal growth journey? Now, last week's episode was all about the value in asking for help and how can we learn to let go of our hyper-independence, our extreme self-reliance, because I know a lot of us are like this. A lot of us are not so shy in asking for help, but I think that those of us who are, how can we push ourselves and learn to lean on the communities that we've built around us? And so reflect on a time when you hesitated to ask for help. What held you back? Now, I invite you to look at these reasons of why you didn't and think about why you could have, or what could have come of it had you done so. Because that's also something that she really wanted us to do, was to think about the benefit in asking for help. Because a lot of the time that's going to help you balance out those reasons why, oh, maybe I shouldn't. Because I think that even if your attempt to ask for help is rejected, then that is a blessing. That is a blessing in disguise. Because if somebody in your close circle, in your community, is refusing to help you, then why are we even keeping this person in our lives? You know? With that, reflect on a time when you hesitated to ask for help, what held you back, and also, what areas of your life could improve if you sought assistance more openly. I think that's a great one. And with that, we've marked the end of the reflective little questions that I had for you. Of course, you do not have to do all of these. If 3 stood out to you, fantastic. I just want to give a little bit of options if you guys liked a particular episode and want a specific prompt for that episode. So I just lumped it all into a major episode. Sorry, it's a bit of a longer one, but I hope that you guys still enjoyed. But before we head out, I wanted to leave you guys, love you and leave you, with a few prompts going into this next year, setting our goals, doing so with self-kindness, self-empathy. And so here, 3 prompts that I want to leave you with is, what excites me most about the future? Learning what's going to be exciting for you, what's going to inspire joy out of you, which is going to, what's going to bring about that joie de vivre or whatever out of you. I think learning what makes you excited is going to make goal setting purposeful in any way. You know, you can't set goals if nothing excites you, if nothing inspires you. And so if you are having trouble finding what inspires you, what excites you, I really implore or encourage you to, put yourself out there. Just like watch a few YouTubers or YouTube videos. I really love YouTube just because it can give you such an intimate glimpse into so many different types of lives. You can watch somebody have a day in the life in Tokyo, or you can watch someone have a day in the life as a business owner at a restaurant in Ireland, or you can go day in the life of somebody who's traveling around the world, or as well as a business owner living in London. You can really see all the different glimpses of life, and it's almost like so many Pinterest boards, like from all over the world, all sectors of life, all different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, educational backgrounds. It's such a great place to draw inspiration from. And so that's a suggestion, one place that you can look if you are having trouble finding that sense of inspiration. Now, with that, what healthy habits do I want to develop going into this next year? With that visualization, how can you break it down? How can you make it digestible? And again, what areas of my life am I happiest with? And what do I want to change? Now, this is going to help you both balance in that reflective aspect as well as a growth mindset. And so I think having those 3 prompts all together, it's really going to help you have a really clear image on your goals. And I assure you that once you get really clear on your goals, it's just going to be up from there. Because even when you fall back down, you've still got that star to look forward to. And so it's all about learning to embrace the calm moments, highs and lows of life, but also learning how to move forward from failure and how to keep your head back up and try to build upon what you've built on yesterday. Okay, I think that's all I have for you guys today. Sorry if it was slightly all over the place. I've never done an episode kind of with this structure, so I was hopping between apps, trying to find everything, going through my old episodes and stuff, but I really hope that you guys enjoyed. I am so thankful for everybody who joined in 2024. Hopefully that you guys will stick along for the ride in 2025. I think that it's only going up from here. I'm going to keep developing, and it's not always going to be happy moments, but that is the key of this podcast, right? We're trying to find beauty in everything, and that includes the bad moments, but it also includes the great ones. So we're doing it all here, and I'm so thankful that you guys joined us this week. I hope you have a wonderful new year. Wishing you guys all nothing but health, wealth, success, joy, happiness, laughter, all of it. Okay, bye.